and our intern, who is going to introduce the reading of the Ten Commandments.
Thank you, Rabbi. So there are a number of midrashim that have this really beautiful idea that the moment that we received the Ten Commandments, this moment of revelation at Mount Sinai, was like a wedding ceremony between God and the people of Israel. It was the truest expression of our love, with the clouds of glory serving as the chuppah, and the Torah itself serving as our ketubah, as our marriage contract. To this day, many Sephardic congregations sing piyutim, ritual poems, on Shavuot that use the format of the ketubah as their basis. Now, I love this analogy of the Torah as ketubah, and I think we have a lot to learn by looking closer at what it means to have a wedding with God and to have a ketubah that we still have in a loving relationship with God. Now, as a rabbinic intern, I've performed a few wedding ceremonies, and one thing that often surprises the couples I work with is what the ketubah actually says. For many people, their primary association with a ketubah is it's a beautiful framed art piece, often with lavish decorations, that hangs in a prominent place in their parents' home and then in theirs. Most people don't actually pay too much attention to the words that are written on the ketubah, and even if they did, Aramaic is not such a commonly understood language these days, so they wouldn't quite be able to make it out. Now, the ketubah, the language in it, was developed as a contract to safeguard brides against frivolous divorces. And its traditional form, it's a document that has a lot of legal language that stipulates dowry amounts and divorce payments if a marriage fails. It's not exactly a romantic letter, but it is an expression of love. It's a contract that lays out responsibilities and lays down a foundation for a life that can be built together. It's a contract that says there will be good days and there will be bad days, but through it all, we're in this together. So what does it mean that the Torah is our ketubah with God? We can certainly say that the Torah does not always read like a love letter. There are moments of extreme beauty, to be sure, but there's also plenty of dry legal language in the Torah and no shortage of rules, regulations, or stipulations. The Torah has plenty of language that can speak to us in 2020 as though it was written yesterday, but other passages read as archaic or even difficult to understand. Much like a ketubah, I think we often put the Torah on a shelf or in an ark, and we admire its beauty from afar because the text itself can feel foreign and difficult for us to understand. Right now, I'm privileged and honored and so happy to be doing my own wedding planning, which has gotten underway in the last few weeks. And my fiance, Ariane, and I have discussed having both a ketubah and a brit ahuvim, a covenant of love or a covenant of lovers. While the ketubah is a formulaic contract, a brit ahuvim can be written from scratch by us to more fully express the commitments we want to make to each other on our wedding day. In a brit ahuvim, we can make promises to one another that are guided by, but not limited to, the legal strictures of a ketubah. I think this framework of an additional contract helps me think about what it means for us as Jewish people to be married to God. The love between God and the people of Israel is attested to not only in the ketubah of the written Torah, but also in the less formulaic, but still binding brit ahuvim of the oral Torah, the Torah shebe'al peh, the Torah that was given according to tradition to Moses at the same time, that includes the Mishnah and the Talmud, but also subsequent commentary up to, I believe, the Torah that we make today when we study Torah and we expound upon it and we look into it for deeper meaning. This oral Torah, this Torah be'al peh, is a brit shebe'al peh, is a brit ahuvim, a covenant of love in which we continually renew our relationship with God through Torah. When receiving the written Torah, the Israelites said, Na'aseh v'nishma, we will do and we will listen. But when it comes to the oral Torah, I believe what we collectively say is, we will listen and we will read, we will study, we will argue, we will comment, we will debate, we will deduce, and we will do. As we approach Shavuot, our communal anniversary celebration, what can we each do to sign our names both to the Ketubah and the Brit Ahuvim that the Jewish people have with God? How can we engage more with the Torah on its own terms and also be a part of the continuing conversation of love that has lasted millennia and continues to this day? I'd like to encourage everyone not only to listen to the 10 commandments that are about to be read so beautifully that signify this ketubah, but also to take some time tonight to take a closer look at this ketubah, at this piece of Torah, and to find one piece of oral Torah, Torah Sheba'al Peh, a piece of Jewish text, old or new, that speaks to you, and read it yourself or share it with someone. CSAR has a number of resources for this that have been sent out that have amazing Torah written by people thousands of years ago and just a couple of days ago. Through your study, your questions, and your ideas, be a part of this amazing Brit Ahuvim, this covenant of love, this eternal loving covenant that binds us to God and Torah as the Jewish people. Chag Sameach. And now we will hear the 10 Commandments chanted by Yoni Werlin.